Singh, Tim Gopi Singh. I'm the vice chairman of this committee and the chairman for this morning's session. The Committee on Public Accounts Enterprise, known as the Public Accounts Enterprise Committee, has a mandate to consider and report to the House on A, the audited accounts, balance sheets, and other financial statements of all enterprises that are owned or controlled by or on behalf of the state. B, the Auditor General's report on any such accounts, balance sheets, and other financial statements. And C, whether your policy is carried out efficiently, effectively, and economically, and whether expenditure conforms to the authority which governs it. So the purpose of this meeting this morning of the Public Accounts Enterprise Committee is to examine the audited accounts, balance sheets, and other financial statements of the Export Centers Company Limited, ECCL, for the period that you have been asked to report on 208 to 211, but to also examine on related matters up to the present time. The committee is desirous of hearing the challenges being faced by the key stakeholders of ECCL in an attempt to determine some of the possible solutions to these challenges. The role of the committee is to help the Export Centers Company Limited to improve its delivery of services in an efficient, effective, and economic manner. This meeting is being held in public and is being broadcast on the Parliament Channel 11 and Radio 105.5 FM and the Parliament's YouTube channel, ParlView. So at this time, we will now introduce our committee, and we can start from our right. Minister.
Good morning all. Nian Gatsudoli, member.
Sorry, a very good morning, Fitzgerald Hines, member.
Take off yours.
Good morning and welcome. Jennifer Bitties Primers, a member of this committee.
Good morning, Amrita Deonarain, member.
Good morning, Foster Cummings, member.
Good morning, Sherian Critchlow-Coburn, member.
Thank you. Would members of the Ministry of Finance Investments Division please introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yvette Bab. I'm the Acting Director of Social and Economic Transformation, Investment Division, Ministry of Finance.
Good morning, Sally Ramisa, Business Analyst, Investment Division, Ministry of Finance.
Thank you. Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts. Oh, more members there, right.
Good morning, Margaret Edwards, Ministry of Finance, Investment Division. I'm a Senior Audit Analyst.
Good morning, Malam Mohammed, Ministry of Finance, Senior Business Analyst.
Thank you. Would the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, the members who are here this morning, kindly introduce yourselves?
Good morning, Suzanne Sherland, Acting Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts.
Good morning, Beverly Reed Samuel, Director, Human Resource Services, Acting Deputy Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Desiree Modest Bascom, Research Officer 1, Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts.
That's it? All right, thank you. Members of the board, would you be kind enough to introduce yourselves?
Good morning, everyone. Volnita John, Chairman, Export Centers Company Limited.
Good morning, Anna Thompson, Deputy Chairman, Export Centers Company Limited.
Yes, both of you from the board here this morning. Okay, thank you very kindly. And your rest of your team, just three of you at the behind.
Pleasant good morning. Suzanne Lorraine, Chief Executive Officer Interim, Export Centers Company Limited.
Good morning, Malama Khan, Board Secretary, Export Centers Company Limited.
Good morning, Shasa David, Export Centers Company Limited, Assistant Accountant.
Good morning, everyone. Mark Ragbert, Facilities Manager, Export Centers Company Limited.
Thank you. Now, it's left for me to ask the chairman of ECCL to make a brief opening statement.
Export Centers Company Limited program was launched in 1994, but it was incorporated under the Companies Ordinance, Chapter 31(1), as a limited company on July the 3rd, 1996, to establish and manage centers which shall engage in light manufacturing, woodwork, craft, and any other business activity for export purposes. Export Centers is a state enterprise under the purview of the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts. The company has 67 members of staff and an existing board of directors comprising of 6 persons installed in May of 2018. The board is committed to leading the company in accordance with the guidelines of the State Enterprises Performance Monitoring Manual and to support the strategic direction of the company. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. But the permanent secretary or acting permanent secretary, be kind enough to, if you so desire, to make some statements.
Thank you, Chair. The role of the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts is primarily an oversight role of the Export Centers Company Limited. Our responsibility as line ministry is to monitor the funds being disbursed by the Ministry of Finance through our ministry to the Export Centers Company Limited, and to ensure compliance with the requirements under the State Enterprises Performance Monitoring Manual. So to that end, we have a monitoring system in place to track the submission of the documents and the reports, and to ensure that as far as possible, the documents are submitted and the ECCL is compliant with the requirements under the Performance Monitoring Manual. Thanks.
Okay, as I mentioned, despite the fact that we are looking at the audited accounts for 2008 to 2011, could the acting permanent secretary and her team explain why is it that we're so delayed in not having audited accounts beyond that which we have to examine today? You want to give any answers to that?
Thank you, Chair. We have our representatives present, and I would like to ask our CEO interim to give a little bit more explanation on that account, please.
Chair, one of the challenges being faced by export centers with regards to submitting these audited financials is finance. Export centers has been given a reduced subvention for the last 5 years, and with that being said, it has become near impossible for us to make these audits available to you, sir.
We'll have some questions from our committee members now. I believe Minister Sherry Coburn wants to ask the first question.
Good morning once again. The name suggests Export Centers Company Limited, that the company is engaged primarily in export. But reading of the material suggests otherwise. In your opening statement, the chairman didn't indicate what's the mandate of the company. So could you please indicate to the committee what is the mandate of the company so we can understand what you know you're primarily engaged in?
The initial mandate of the company was the revitalization of craft, all right, for export purposes. Initially, in the early stages, the company did have export of mainly fabric design, and I believe it was for the islands, exports to the islands. Now, I don't know, the CEO may be able to assist me with regard to when that had stopped, but presently, and in our strat plan, we are now educating, or we now have plans in place to take our artisans to the level of export readiness and entrepreneurship. Presently, we are now putting a program in place to train our artisans to take them to that level. I don't know if the CEO would be able to assist with when we had stopped and the reason for it. Yeah.
So initially, the Export Centers Company Limited was launched as a manufacturing company. However, in 2001, we got a new mandate, which was to train single female heads of households. So we went from manufacturing to a training institution.
So the committee is to understand that the company is basically a training entity?
Yes.
So
May I add something there? While the company has from the time last elections to date, has been primarily involved in training, the board, upon being installed, we went back to the Articles of Association and we realized that, and it was a question we asked when we got in, we realized that the mandate is training with a view to developing artisans who are capable of producing quality goods that can be exported. As such, this is the first strat plan that we have worked on as a board and management, and we have revisited that mandate. So therefore, if you were to refer to our strat plan, you would see training, yes, but not just training in craft, training in entrepreneurship, training in business management, and you'd also see a number of alliances being established with organizations such as Export, TT, such as NEDCO, to be able to move the artisans who are so capable to be able to produce craft that is export ready, especially in light of the number of people we have on the job market now who would probably have a higher level of academic achievement and would be more readily able to convert to artisans who can export.
So are you in a company to indicate to the committee how many persons you would have trained and have been able to bring to that level, and how the company's involvement in training artisans to that level has been able to impact the whole development, the developmental thrust of the government?
Suzanne?
To date, Export Centers has trained over 5,000 persons. And of these 5,000 persons, we have had over 200 persons forming registered businesses. And in addition to this, we have also had persons, approximately 200 persons as well, forming businesses in-house, businesses at home, small businesses, unregistered. Export Centers, we have also added to the job market, because some of these persons who established businesses created jobs as well. So we had approximately 98 jobs being created.
And just my last question for now. I note here that the company, through its program, was supposed to contribute to the reduction in crime and poverty. Are you in a position to indicate how you may have impacted those two areas?
So some of the institutions that we reached out to with regards to our training were institutions such as the Goodwill, and also we did some training in the YTC, the Youth Training Camp. Those were very successful training programs. We have seen persons, after being rehabilitated in the prisons, come out and continue with some of the training that they would have gotten from us. In addition to that, we have some of our centers are situated in what we call the high-risk areas, Lavental, Mova, Labre, Faizabad. And these areas, we have seen persons, committed to coming to export centers to better themselves. So export centers, I would say, has made an impact with regards to that alleviating crime, because we have touched a lot of lives. Our tutors, to that point where our tutors have now become counselors. So yes to that question.
Right, thank you. Minister Primus has some questions for you.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman. Madam CEO, I just want to continue that thread of conversation with regards to the organizational relationship with NETCO. Is there a collaboration with NETCO? And if so, what is the span of collaboration taking place? And I would want to link that, once I get the response, I would want to link that to your planned incubators program for artisans.
So initially, export centers signed an MOU with NETCO. NETCO was one of our partners. We partnered with them. So they assisted us. They also came to some of our training programs, and they would deliver information to our candidates with regards to setting up business, financial aid, providing financial aid. In moving forward, though, there was some breakdown with regards to that relationship. In 2013, I think it was, in 2013, we re-engaged NETCO. They went out to some of our classes, and some of our trainees were able to access some funding from them to start their businesses.
May I inquire, how long have you been with this company?
I have been with export centers for the past 12 years, not in the capacity as interim CEO. I started as a tutor, and then I was promoted to the quality assurance coordinator, after which I was promoted again to the training manager, which is my current position, my substantive position, and now interim CEO.
So that you have longevity in the organization.
Yes, ma'am.
And perhaps that forms the basis of my next question. From where you sit, why is it that the accounts are only up to 2011? Earlier, you made mention of finance, but I don't think I have been able to quite interpret what that means. The population must understand that if the organization is being hamstrung, in what way the organization is being hamstrung.
Okay, so in addition to the financial constraints, ECCL has faced one of our biggest challenges is the high turnover in executive management. So at present, we don't have a financial accountant, and this has been since 2013. 13, 14, around there. We have had 6 CEOs to date in the space of 7 years, 5 to 7 years. The HR manager we don't have at the moment. So most of the key players to push export centers forward, those positions are vacant.
What do you think is responsible for the high turnover and the fact that critical positions have not been filled? Because this committee may be in a position to assist the company if we understand clearly the challenges that you all are undergoing.
So if you will allow me to ask the Deputy Chair to respond to that question.
Okay, although we've only been here probably, 8 months, based on the information that has been shared with us and our interaction with staff, it seems that from 2015 to date, not it seems that, from 2015 to date, the company has been in a bit of a holding position. So when we came in May, we recognized the number of vacancies to be filled. One of the challenges we faced was finding an approved org structure. The only approved org structure that the organization had was from when it was initially set up. So one of our priorities as a board was to prepare an org structure and to get it approved. That is currently awaiting approval in the hands of the ministry. But what we have also made a decision of as a board is that for us to be effective as an organization, we need to start to fill those positions. So as we speak, advertisements are being prepared for some of the key positions in the organization so that we would have the relevant personnel to take the organization forward.
I pause for now, Mr. Chairman. I'll come back a little later on with regards to the question on the artisan and the development of the entrepreneurial spirit.
Can I ask the Investments Division, in terms of monitoring of these enterprises and the role of the Investments Division in requirements of having these audited statements completed and made up to date, can we get an understanding why this situation remained only up to 2011 when the Investments Division has the monitoring capacity for dealing with some of these enterprises? Ms. Barton?
Thank you, Chair. With respect to export centers have been, their financial statements has been outstanding for a while. They have indicated, well, we have written them on several occasions. They did make efforts to improve it, to bring it up to 2011. But I think what they had indicated about probably 2017 is that they did not have a financial accountant. And that was one of the main reasons why they couldn't bring the financial statement. They had no one to prepare it. Plus, the issue of funding to employ auditors to audit financial statements. Plus, the issue of funding to fill key vacant positions, including the financial accountant.
Do you have, to your investment division, do you have the capacity and the institutional capability and the requirement to ask some of these state enterprises and give some help to them to bringing these audited accounts up to date?
Well, in our role as investment division, we have the role as shareholder. So we cannot prepare the financial statements. The companies account to us through their financials, letting us know what they do to the financial statements. But what we may be able to, well, I'll have to talk to the permanent secretary about that, and if there is any way that we can assist them by probably having, I don't know what the mechanism they could use to get it, or someone to prepare the financials. if it is the companies having funding issues as such.
Ms. Barb, this is our 33rd meeting since we have been appointed as a Public Accounts Enterprise Committee. We have posed this question to the Investment Division. We have had a number of state enterprises coming in with the repeated issues of not having up-to-date financial statements or audited accounts. From our understanding, it is the responsibility of the Investments Division through the Ministry of Finance to ensure that this is done. And it is your responsibility to move purposefully in getting the state enterprises to have these things sorted out and committed. And it is not for us to, as a committee, now to hear the Investments Division will be speaking with the Ministry of Finance to get some help for these companies. That should have been forthcoming long ago. So notwithstanding that, I hope that you will move purposefully to help this in the country to understand what has been happening between 2011 to 2018 and to move expeditiously, not only in this company, but many others. And we had found that in our analysis of a number of companies in the past. But we look forward to your quickening your purposeful support for the organization and helping them to get their audited statements. Members of the ECCL, the chairman and deputy chairman, could you give us an understanding of the overall, how many centers you have across Trinidad and Tobago, training people, citizens? That's one question. How many employees do you have? 67, all right. How many positions do you see vacant from your new organizational chart that you have brought forward? And how many centers, what is your total budget per year?
In terms of number of centers, we have 13 centers across Trinidad. One of the objectives in our strat plan is to establish a relationship with the THA so that we can also expand our reach to Tobago. In terms of number of vacant positions, I'm trying to find the org structure.
I know we have positions such as the HR manager position, vacant, HR manager, vacant in...
So understanding of how many that are vacant from the top position down.
About 5 to 8 persons.
And most of these are in the senior administrative position?
Yes, yes.
Right. Okay, and your total annual budget?
May I ask the CEO, would you be to assist with regard to the budget, the annual budget?
The actual budget or the actual budget?
The budgetary allocation, it may vary from year to year, but how much you have been?
How much we have been allocated, sir? 6.3 million annually.
And have an understanding of previous years?
Previous years, we have been allocated 11 million, 11.1, sometimes 10.
Oh, okay. Now, that's last from the chair, and my colleagues will certainly. We have a number of training institutions in the country, and this is specifically your institution is for arts and other allied crafts as well. There are other institutions like YTEP and so on, which do training as well. Is there any relationship with other stakeholders which do training to help you improve the amount of people you're bringing into the program and helping them to become much more efficient and productive and then therefore widen their businesses help to employ more people. And your name of your company is Export. So I wouldn't go into that for the time being, but I was reading your notes. You haven't done much export from anything like here. So could you give us some comments on that, your relationship with other stakeholders? How do you see yourself in terms of training and where you want to go based on your new strategic plan?
So, Chair, based on our new strategic direction, the export centers would start our training from the intermediate into the advanced stage. Reason being, the basic level training is already being offered at our line ministry, from our line ministry. So it is the intention of export centers to take the capacity of persons being trained at a basic level phase into our intermediate and advanced phase. The advanced phase would then produce persons who would be experienced and qualified to get into business.
Well, since 1994, this company was formed, on reading your answers. But it's taking a long time to really bring about the required objective, fulfillment of the objective of the company in terms of helping the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago with training in arts and crafts and being able to focus these young entrepreneurs into export. But we are not seeing that. How is that going to be? And that's the intention 24 years ago and still not being fulfilled 24 years later. We read your tracer studies where you had 200 plus X being admitted, the training program, 200 completing, etc., some dropping out. But when you look at the amount of people they have employed, have not been any substantial, nor have they progressed with their businesses. What can you do and what can we do as a committee to, in our recommendations to help you to improve that situation?
So I'm glad that you asked that question. It has been a fight, a challenge for export centers with regards to reaching our maximum with regards to the potential of the company. Export centers has faced challenges with regards to how we are being measured. Whenever we start a training program, be it from the basic level to get into the advanced, intermediate, and advanced level, the challenge has always been probably change in government, high turnover in management. So we stop, we regroup. We have had years where no training has been done, nothing has been done. We have been sitting and waiting for a directive. We were absent of a board. So the challenges has been numerous, but the main thing that I would like to see being changed with regards to export centers is how we are measured. Before, what is happening currently is export centers is being measured on how many persons we train. I have said time and time again, the higher you go, the smaller the group gets. So when you offer a basic level training, you have capacity. You have a large number of people attending your classes. As you get into the intermediate and advanced phase, this is where you have the modules would change. So you would have technical skills being offered, but in addition to that, you will have the design module, you will have the enterprise training. These would be more of a technical nature. If we look at the persons that we are, our target group is, for want of a better word, a bit challenged financially and to an extent academically. So it's been a very tedious thing for export centers to get to that point when we are continuously being stopped and we regroup. So we stop, we regroup. So we can't get to that point of having our advanced trainees get into the export market. So I guess that's one of the challenges we have. I am hoping that, not hoping, I know that the intention of our directors is to get to this level, and with the assistance of our line ministry and finance, we would be able to make a difference this time around.
All right, thank you. Minister Coburn.
The question I had was dealt with to some extent. My concern was the attraction and retention of persons in these training programs, because the submission suggested that they were not operating at full capacity at the respective centers. So my concern was what could be done to change that. And I am wondering, I know my colleague would have asked about working together with NITCO, the chairman would have raised up. There are a number of organizations that provide training, and I was wondering whether the company could not have collaborated with them more, and really, is there need? I think the question is there need for a separate entity as exists currently, or could there be a greater collaboration so that we get more value for money?
I would attempt to answer that question. There, in its old incarnation, because we have to appreciate that for the past 2 and probably 2.5 years, the company was in, as I said earlier, in a holding pattern, meaning that the revenue, the subvention from the government didn't facilitate training. When this board was installed, we became a little creative, and we restarted training in September 2018. As to your question as whether there's need for an additional training facility, I say yes. And I want to emphasize that our focus is not just training, because including in our strat plan and in our goals going forward, we also have the establishment of craft markets. And we're actually looking to, and having talks with very soon, as early as next week, establishing permanent craft markets. So what that also does is it opens avenues for artisans in Trinidad and Tobago to continuously be able to showcase their craft. Because we have examples from places like China who have been able to monetize their craft. And we are being guided by those examples. And therefore, we have some initiatives that it's not just about training. And we do recognize that it doesn't make sense to reinvent the wheel, hence the reason we are looking at partnering in different areas, like with, as was stated earlier, NEDCO, we're looking at Export TT, we're even looking at the Ministry of Agriculture, because one of the challenges that we faced in the past is the denuding of the forests, and some of the plants that are used in the craft no longer being available. So in developing this most recent strat plan, which spans the period 2019 to 2021, we don't intend to reinvent the wheel. We do intend to partner, but our role is not just training. Our role is taking those people who have the capacity, both academically and from a craft standpoint, to move those people. And we also, we're really looking at various ways that we can collaborate to ensure that our objectives are met. So to say that if we were just focusing on training, I would say maybe not, but that's not our only focus.
And may I add, additionally, in our strat plan, we also have plans to establish an incubator program for our artisans, together with a production unit. And I know the training, she's previously the training manager, will be able to explain more, but the incubator program would assist artisans in utilizing a venue. After they are trained, they do not have a venue, they do not have access to the type of equipment that we would have. So that's a plan we have moving forward, the incubator program, to assist artisans to further their development by the use of the incubator programs and the production unit. It's still in the embryonic stage, but these are plans we have moving forward to take them to a different level and to get them ready for export.
I am happy to hear about those two developments, and in terms of the establishment of permanent craft markets in particular, it takes me back to the company had established a store in Gulf City. When was that store opened, and what was the rationale behind establishing a store in Gulf City? And was it a success or was it a failure? Because I realized that the store has since been closed. So if you could give us some idea what your experience was with that store, because it would then probably guide you in terms of further establishment of craft markets in the future.
I know the store was opened in 2014. Our interim CEO will give us a little more details with regard to why it was closed and how long it was open for.
The store was open, Handmade Creations at the Gulf City Mall. There was a launch in July, I think it was July. Let me just pass this question to the assistant accountant. She has a little more information.
Hi, good day. I don't have the date the store was open.
Just to
It's okay
share,
if you just indicate the year, that's okay.
We believe it was 2014, and we based on, and this is pass it on knowledge. We understand that the store was not a financial success, hence the reason for it being closed. We have taken that into consideration in regard to establishing a permanent craft market. And without being too premature, we've had an initial discussion with the chairman of the NCC, because we are looking at a location that is more heavily trafficked, and which can be, in terms of throughout the year, when tourists visit Trinidad and Tobago, a lot of them do this Port of Spain tour, where they do the Magnificent Seven and stuff. And our intent is that we would establish our permanent craft market within the Savannah, and therefore add that to one of the places that tourists would stop. And at that stage, they'd be able to purchase local craft.
Minister Primus.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My concern is the lack of a management structure in the organization, because the board could be well-intentioned and exert a lot of energies and resources in capacity building by way of the development of a strategic plan. But if the management structure is not in place to implement, then you'll be spinning top in mud. I have listened to the fact that there is no financial accountant. May I be advised as to when was the last financial accountant in place?
The last financial accountant would have left December 2015.
2015. Am I correct in my interpretation, Madam CEO, that the assistant accountant is carrying out the functions of the financial accountant? Am I correct in that assumption?
Yes.
Now, we have been advised that there are six management positions. Is it 6? The CEO, the financial accountant, your HR manager, which is vacant, internal auditor. Yes. Which are the other positions? All those positions are vacant?
Marketing, yes, we do not have a marketing manager.
So you have an interim CEO, no financial accountant, no HR, no internal auditor, no marketing manager, and the organization is still existing. It means that you all have done a good job in holding up the organization, but much more is needed. And I want to ask the PS at this point in time, because these positions have to be filled. We all know the challenges. We all know the challenges, the financial challenges. But have there been releases to fill these positions?
Thank you, Minister. Not to my knowledge as yet. The structure with the vacant positions and some of the suggested new positions are right now before the Public Management Consultancy Division. So we're waiting on a response from them so that we can move forward.
So these positions are not approved positions?
Some, yes. They are.
No, the top management positions that we are dealing with.
They're all approved, yes. I believe.
But why is it at PMCD then?
Would like to assist in response. I'll ask the deputy.
Why are they at PMCD if they're already approved positions?
Some new positions were identified, and so new positions were identified, and some contract positions in terms of the approval for them. So the entire structure is now before the Public Management Consulting Division to, look at a new structure for the organization. But they can still, now that they have a board in place, they can still now go ahead to fill those approved positions which were board approved before.
So that means the top management positions have been approved?
Yes.
So funds have to be identified to fill those positions. Are we to understand that funds have not been identified to fill those positions?
I think what has happened, as the CEO did mention, over the years they have been given a reduced allocation, very tight reduced allocation. But they will, in terms of make representation to the ministry and justification for additional funding if they need. But they too have to, look at their funding to fill these critical positions now that the board is in place.
So it takes me back to you, Madam CEO, and the chairman of the board. Was a decision taken to advertise these top positions?
Yes, I must say that actually we are at the point of getting quotations, and we started with the positions of the CEO, HR manager.
You mean quotations from the various newspapers?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
CEO's position, the HR manager, financial accountant, internal auditor to begin with. All right, so we are at that process now. With regard to getting quotations, I think we have received just a few, and we will take it from there because we recognize how important it is.
What is the timeline you all are operating with, given the fact that obtaining the quotation is not a lengthy exercise?
2 months, we're looking at 2 months, let's say from now until like March.
So by the end of the first quarter 2019, the board's intention is to fill these,
positions,
the CEO, the financial accountant, the HR manager, and the internal auditor.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm satisfied at this point in time.
Senator Divnarine.
Good morning. I'm looking at your Tracer Studies report here, and I see that there are two main challenges identified for the handicraft producers, the graduates from that program, if that's the name of the program. The two challenges are access to finance and accessing raw materials, two main challenges. Now, you have indicated and elaborated on the access to finance part of it. Can you elaborate on the ECCL's role in helping these graduates with accessing the raw materials, that challenge that they face?
We, in preparation for the strat plan, we met with stakeholders, including artisans. And one of their challenges was the cost of raw material as well as the availability. So one of our plans is to work with one of the established cooperatives to see how we can source raw materials on a more wholesale basis so that they could be able to purchase the raw materials at more reasonable prices.
Thank you.
Minister Hines.
Indication, thank you, as to whether from your knowledge there are other informal, and by that I mean outside of your operation, centers where training is conducted and where sales are conducted for items of craft in Trinidad and Tobago, like a alternative market and operations, from your knowledge. In addition to that, I would like, for the benefit of the committee and the citizens, if you would give us as detailed as you reasonably can, an idea as to what sort of items we now produce as a nation within the definition or the rubric of craft. You know? To my mind, I used to see a lot more many years ago of all different kinds of things. Today it seems rather limited. The world and the market might have changed. What do we have to offer the world in terms of craft now? With a bit of a descriptor so we'll get a little idea what you're talking about.
So with respect to the first question, there are a couple markets out there, the up market and the green market. They assist some of the artisans with getting their products out there. But as you rightly said, the craft industry is dying. I think export centers, and by extension our line ministry, is the last lifeline to our craft and artisans. This being said, in moving forward with regards to getting some of the products out there, we are seeing now trending the crochet, which has hit the market abroad. We are seeing a lot of woodcraft being done, and with the insurgence of HDTV, a lot of people are now looking at artifacts and craft items to decorate their homes. The intention of export centers, however, is to produce items that are not just decorative, but are utilitarian. So it can be used, it's purposeful. The craft areas that we train in are wide. We have clustered them. So we have 10 clusters. We have clusters ranging from cloth craft, metal craft, wood craft. And in each cluster, there would be a range of craft areas that we would, for example, with the cloth craft cluster, you would have fabric design, you would have garment construction, crochet. So we would have a range of the cloth craft areas in that cluster. Likewise, the other clusters. So export centers is unique with regards to the training that we provide. Although we may say that other institutions provide training, but the areas in which we train are more unique to Trinidad and Tobago. We try to produce items, we try to instill in our artisans that they produce items that are unique to Trinidad and Tobago. So when persons come in, they can take something back with them that is Trinidad and Tobago and not made in China or made in India. No pun intended.
Yes.
If I may, Chair, just a question of clarification I think I want to ask to the Deputy Chairman or the Chairman. With respect to the size of the craft industry, the Chairman mentioned China and looking at different models. With respect to the size of the craft industry in some of the more developed countries as well as South America, maybe you can elaborate as to what is the potential of the craft industry and therefore how export centers fits into that for Trinidad and Tobago.
I just want to piggyback on what Ms. Narayan said with respect to functional craft. And I want to also juxtapose that against the fact that currently in Trinidad and Tobago, there really is a challenge in getting local craft. So what we are looking at is, in terms of the potential, we do, for example, we ran some training programs recently, and we did things like windows, like curtains and drapery, home furnishings. Those things are practical things, and as she also said, the crochet and all that. Granted, we don't have the size of a China, but we do have the talent, and we do have the capacity to produce. And that's the reason why we are setting up the production centers, because the production centers are going to allow artisans who are probably operating within a very small space with limited equipment to produce on a much larger basis. And what is doubly good about that is that they're going to also have the support of the master craftsmen of the Export Centers Company Limited. So when I said we use the model is that when you go to China, well, of course, China is a socialist country, but they make sure that the tourists visit all the places that manufacture their stuff. You see it in manufacture, you see the process in manufacture, and then you go next door and you buy. And from my experience, a lot of money was spent. And people want to take things back from the home country. They don't want things made, because, I mean, China produces stuff and sells it all over the world. You don't want to come to Trinidad to buy something made in China. One of the things that we have to emphasize, however, with our artisans is in terms of helping them to cost their goods properly. Because we have this belief in Trinidad and Tobago that, this take real work to make, so we have to charge plenty money for it. But we also have to be realistic in pricing. And that's the kind of support that, in terms of, we will do the research and give them this kind of support that they need. And because they would have equipment that would facilitate producing larger quantities at smaller prices, we would be able to be more competitive. So when the tourist comes to Trinidad, as Minister Hines said, they would not be buying made in China. They'd be buying made in Trinidad and Tobago. And we have very good craftsmen and artisans who are capable of producing such material. I don't know if I've answered your question, Minister.
Chairman, I just want to piggyback on my colleague's question. Based on the vision that you have just articulated for this committee and by extension Trinidad and Tobago, it would assist if you could help us understand if you all are building any relationship with the Ministry of Tourism, because to me that's a natural stakeholder.
For sure.
They tell us a little about that.
So it's both the Ministry of Tourism, and there's also Tourism Trinidad Limited, the new company. So yes, we do. Now, to be honest, our strat plan is fresh, and we have been preparing for this committee. So we are going to be establishing, the CEO has already reached out to some of the organizations, the state enterprises, as well as private companies that we will be looking to collaborate with. So it's definitely one of the when you review our strat plan, you will see that the Ministry of Tourism is definitely there as one of the stakeholders with whom we will work, because we will need them to direct the tourists to
exactly,
yes.
And all these cruise ships that
yes.
would be coming in. Another area I wanted to highlight, we have the traditional craft, but a new type of craft is trending, and it has to do with cloth jewelry. I mean, I was very excited for Christmas going there. I was given two lovely necklaces with the accompanying, all made from cloth, beautifully. Are we looking at the kind of arts that are trending, although the longevity we don't know, it depends on demand and supply. Are Are you all looking, viewing, expanding the areas of the craft?
Definitely, that's our intention. We definitely don't want to do things by VAP, to use a local term. So one of the positions that we also have to fill is a research officer, because I have done a lot of research. No, that's the ministry's research officer. So I have done my own research. And you're right, in terms of people want functionality, and the CEO also alluded to that. But in terms of the specific areas, I wouldn't say that my research has told me everything, but we do recognize that before we embark, we know definitely that the crochet is working. We know definitely that the home furnishings is working. And therefore, when we have our research officer, they would be able to give us additional information and with supporting data as to what else is trending in the craft sector.
If I may, I just want to, same topic. I heard the chief executive officer say, interim, that the craft industry is dying, and I wonder why she would say that. Being in the industry and knowing that it may be changing, and it's changing towards the utilitarian. I think it's of value. I don't think that for the benefit of the public and the committee, explaining what exactly craft looks like in 2019, because this company was formed a long time ago, and the impression and the of what craft is, I think, is different from what the reality is. And I would like if the members could just take a little time to explain in detail what are the craft items you can expect to see when you go to a craft market now, as opposed to what you'd have seen before.
I visited our Diego Martin outlet, or Diego Martin Center. Mrs. Jennifer Batiste mentioned the fabric jewelry, and our Diego Martin Center, we did have artisans producing jewelry out of fabric. I have seen it. I think the CEO was there with me. So at least that's a start. All right, and we saw earrings and necklaces out of fabric, very unique and innovative. All right, innovation is the way we will be going. We don't want the normal run-of-the-mill arts, the napkin holders and those things, all right? So that with research, and that's why our research department will be very important in helping us to move forward to a different level.
And just to add, I am praying that maybe the Sanders deal can be saved, but we do recognize that the hotel industry, in terms of they use a lot of local craft. All right, so what the challenge is, because we were speaking to a hotelier recently, and her challenge was, can we get consistent quantities and quality? And that is where the production centers come in. All right, because with the production centers, it facilitates producing larger quantities. So I believe the market is definitely here, but during I would call it a lacuna, all right, you did not have that kind of production taking place. And it's the intention of this board to reinvigorate the market, the artisans, to ensure that that kind of production takes place.
One last comment.
Senator Cummings has been waiting a long time.
Okay.
for us.
Thank you, Chairman. You mentioned that you are working on a strat plan. Is it complete? How advanced is it?
It is complete.
Board approval? Is it with the ministry? Where is it at?
It has been submitted to the ministry for approval.
So that, and I ask that because earlier you mentioned that the company was on a bit of a hold. So now that you have developed this new strat plan and it's at the ministry, is it that you're going to take off in a new direction now?
I wouldn't say new, I would say going back to the mandate of the company.
Going back to the mandate, excellent. Somebody mentioned before, I think it was the CEO, about the target group and certain vulnerabilities with the target group. What is the target group that you're aiming at? Who are you trying to capture here?
Traditionally, we captured single mothers and heads of households. We captured people from the lower socioeconomic background because we were trying to give these people income earning potential so that they can take care of their families. That is still the target group. However, we do, if any of you have visited craft markets, you would see that there's a different group, a different socioeconomic group that is now participating in the craft sector. We also recognize that there are a number of people who traditionally, after they had done their degrees, they went to work in these traditional companies. They are now leaving organizations with a significant little money in their pockets. And many of them, and I know some of them who are involved in all sorts of craft, in design, who are now getting the opportunity to do what they loved, but what they would not have been able to do before because, you know, you grow up, your parents tell you, you have to become this, you have to become that, you do it. So those people are also our target. And why they are our target is because they would be already people who probably have a management background. They might not have an export background, but they are people on whom we can easily build and shorten that route, that pathway between production and export.
Now, how do people know about you? How do you sell yourself? Is it, I can't remember seeing any advertisements anywhere. Do you have extension officers?
That's one of the goals of our strategic plan, to increase our visibility. And we are living in a social media world. So we do have a social media presence. We do recognize it's not adequate. So we are looking at one of the things we're looking at is our branding, our logo. You look at the logo and it doesn't strike you as export. So we are looking at ways that we can increase our presence out there because people have to know about us to come to us. So that is one of the goals we have identified.
You have, within the CARICOM, the Caribbean region, any similar organization like this one doing similar work that you can reference to share successes with? Anywhere? Jamaica, Barbados, Bahamas?
Not that we know of.
Something that you might want to
explore.
I'll pause for now. Come back.
Mr. Hines.
Assessment of this. And that question just posed by Senator Cummings is very, very interesting. We have this formal structure here called the export centers. And he mentioned Jamaica, a place where you would find a lot of craft everywhere you turn, being sold at 11 o'clock in the night as you're driving over a old bridge somewhere, all over. And then somebody mentioned earlier China. Two examples to my mind where, and it underpins another point you made as to who are we attracting into the craft industry now. It is not that traditional fellow who just liked carving this and carving that. It's the businessman, the entrepreneur. He is the one with some money, as you said, and he's now getting involved strictly and largely driven by business considerations. And I think that is very, very critical. But the China and the Jamaica, to my mind, render examples of where circumstances where poverty and need is what drives people to entrepreneurship and tremendous success. Trinidad and Tobago, it appears to me, layman as I am, might have experienced a kind of well-being and access to money that did not make tourism and craft and all that as critical as it was to those other places. And therefore, I want to conclude by asking whether one of the missing ingredients here is this very banal or simple issue of consciousness. Because when you buy a piece of jewelry, or you buy a shoe, or you buy something made elsewhere, you are creating employment and opportunity for faceless individuals in factories where they come from. If you were conscious as a Trinidadian and wanted a piece of jewelry made at home, as I'm sure other people live, then that in itself, that consciousness, national consciousness, might have generated greater opportunities for the craft market in Trinidad and Tobago. Your thoughts, please.
I want to agree with you, and I want to suggest that that starts with our curriculum and our education system. I mean, I did not do civics in school. I was happy to say too young for that. But I do appreciate what civics did. And what civics did is it created that pride. It created those guidelines of how you operate as a citizen of a country. And maybe we need to look at our education system and ensure we return to some of those values. Because when you start as a child, it grows with you. We already have adults who, it's harder to train somebody who already has habits and patterns. So I agree with you, and I would like to suggest that we go back to the school system and we revisit some of those subjects that helped us to build a proud Trinbagonian, to build a group of people who understand that we need to spend to support our own. Yes, we support external, but we need to spend to support our own as well.
Yes, thank you. And I feel obliged to place on record from my own human experience, recently driving through, not advertising for anybody, but I was driving through McCoy Road about a week and a half or two ago, and I saw some craft just past Excellent Center of Excellence. And I was obliged to stop and purchased an item. I mean, really wonderful, obviously mud, but properly well glazed and designed. And because it was local, I was inspired to purchase at a pretty reasonable price, but I did. And then recently I came to one of your craft markets and ran into a little operation run by some sisters out in Manzanilla, I think Solidarity or something like that. And they made a lot of cloth, jewelry out of cloth. And I found it extremely impressive and wondered why every woman in Trinidad didn't try to get a piece. But then, you know, it requires a certain amount of consciousness. So I think that's something we have to focus on to create the opportunities for these craft artisans to do their thing and have a market.
Chairman, if I may, I was inviting the members of Export to expand on the types of craft. Member Hines has spoken about the ceramics, spoken about the cloth, jewelry. I'm inviting the members again to speak about the soaps, to speak about the handmade cosmetics, to speak about the fashion industry and its intrusion into the craft market, to speak about the purchase of wares, ware plates and so on made in our local design. So I'm inviting the team to give a little more detail. The public wants to know, what does craft look like now?
Well, go ahead.
Craft market that I attended at Napa, and it's something I think I shared with our team with regard to, I saw a clock, and it was made from, you know, long ago we speak of LP, the record, and I brought it to the team and I said, this is really unique, it's just different. I mean, the young people today don't know anything about a record, so to them it may look old-fashioned, but I found it to be so creative that they took an LP, a record, and they made a clock out of it. And it's something that we could have adopted, you know. I saw our woodwork. Actually, we have a table, a center table, made in the shape of a steel pan, and with the notes and all of that. All right, so these are some of the creative arts that we need to really get into, the creativity of doing things differently.
But just to add to that, while these are new, innovative ideas, we have a lot of window, what do you call them? Window furnishings.
Mm-hmm.
We do woodwork. We do nice things like wine holders, things that you can use as gifts and that are popular. We do home furnishings. In other words, you do things like, well, of course, the crochet, a lot of batik. And batik is something that is desired and that can draw a good price. Lisa Faye Fabrics is an example of somebody, a successful artisan in that area. Batik, tie-dye, and in addition to not just doing the fabric, but using that batik and tie-dye to make not just clothing, but to also make home furnishings so that your whole place can be coordinated. Because we ladies are big on the coordination. The men not so much, but even ladies are big on that. So we do, in addition, we did basket weave, making baskets, making trays, and that is one of the things that brought us to the fact of conservation. Because while we want to do those things, we want to make sure that we are not denuding the forest, that we are extracting the raw material in a responsible manner. Some of the other things we do are...
So if you allow me, I understand the question that you're asking, Minister, but one of the things that Export Centers has done is introduce a module in our training program called the design module. Now that design module leads you to what's trending, new items being produced. So what happens with the craft is that the techniques remain the same. It never changes. The design changes. So we in our technical skill training, we teach the techniques, and then the design unit now modifies the product to allow the trainees to produce something that is more modern and trending. So you will get a variety of new crafts, but using the same techniques.
Senator Cummings.
I want to focus on the craft market a bit. You said that you're in discussions with NCC to utilize a location at the Savannah for the craft market. And at that location, you will be able to encourage tourists to come there to take part in the market. The artisans, I think, will have to depend on access to the local market as well. So that I do not know whether the venue you have selected will allow or has that kind of traffic that you are hoping to have to encourage local participation. Would you or have you looked at possibly looking at another venue where you have ready everyday traffic, the ports of entry, downtown Port of Spain and those kinds of things? I know cost is going to be a consideration, but if you're going to have a market, then you need people in a market. And I don't think that you should only rely on when the ships come in or so forth. You have to position them to have a market that is that has ready customers.
To answer your question, yes, we have considered other venues. In fact, we had a meeting with the Ministry of Tourism just last week with respect to setting up a craft market on the waterfront. But that is for the cruise ship season. But we are also looking at, for example, we have a center in Tunapuna, behind the Tunapuna market. So there's a lot of traffic in Tunapuna. So we are looking at that as a potential center outlet as well, where we can sell craft. So we are not only focusing on the Savannah, but what I would like to suggest to you is that the Savannah is a beehive of activity with all the sporting groups who utilize the Savannah, with all the fitness groups who utilize the Savannah. And because people come to the Savannah for shows, etc., you always have traffic that will then become aware, even local traffic, that, hey, we can get local craft here. We can also work with, I don't know that we would have, especially in the initial stages, the money to set up a market in town, downtown Port of Spain, but we can certainly work with people who do have craft shops to sell our items on consignment in those craft shops. So I don't believe that we would want to go and compete where we have this albatross around our neck in terms of monthly rental for downtown Port of Spain, but we can certainly have our material available in some of those outlets.
May I add, I also believe that once the public is aware that there is a permanent venue where they can purchase craft souvenirs, I think they will find it. Around the savannah may seem out of the way, but it can create a very, very attractive venue. There are times when you may have visitors here, or you may want to purchase something and you're not sure where to go. If it is, we have a permanent location and it's publicly advertised and really showcased, I think the public will not find it difficult to get to that location. Once they can get the quality of craft that they need, they will go all out for it.
With parking.
Can I now, from the chair, help to redirect the thinking of export company, in my assessment, in terms of the original mandate of the export company? What we are discussing and describing here, excellent for Trinidad and Tobago, to expand the craft market. And if from your strategic direction, you referred to the mandate to develop the country's export capability. That's why it was named export company. We're not hearing much about that at all. Utilizing local skills and local raw materials, indigenous to Trinidad and Tobago. And your structure was twofold. In addition to its production, which we're talking about, an export mandate, another objective of the program was to provide an opportunity for the training of persons in craft activities, which you are doing. But we need to see it on a larger scale, and I'll come to that, that will have an economic appeal. And so the cabinets had agreed on many occasions to the export company should be responsible for identification of market opportunities. I want you to take your thinking to a higher level. A continuous design, which we spoke about, design of a range of craft items with a Caribbean aesthetic, and sourcing raw materials locally and internationally. In terms of your training, when we have so many unemployed people and people in institutions who require some degree of things to do that could be meaningful, that would meaningfully impact upon them, I just want to refer to places like, you don't need to do much marketing to go there. St. Michael's Home, St. Jude's Home, Princess Elizabeth Center, the Women's Unemployment Relief Program. So these are just right away areas where you can take your programs to source people, to train them, and to engage them, and to prevent them from, and to give something meaningfully to them. So may I give you, it's in your documentation, but we need to focus there as well, because you need to focus on the people, your arts, your craft, and also the export capability and creating employment for people. In your tracer study, your employment levels have been very low, although you have trained people, but the training could be wider. And that's why I'm speaking to you in these areas. Now, you have quite rightly indicated that your synergy should be Ministry of Social Development. So to see what social development is doing and expand on some of their programs in social development. Ministry of National Security, like the Youth Training Center and the Women's Prison. So why are we not thinking of taking your training to these areas, rather than just asking people in your different centers to come there? It will take no money, not much money for you to go to training to these centers. So we need to refocus your direction, and it's probably going to be part. What is your synergy with your National Training Agency to help you? Because that's an agency, well, we analyzed them and they had tremendous difficulties. The YTEP training program, and the engineering companies like MIC and so on to help to train people to produce these arts and crafts. So your possibility is big and wide, but I'm not getting the picture that you are expanding your thinking to the wider horizon and you're focusing inwardly. Let me just conclude it. Are you giving certification for them? City and, well, not City and Guilds, but the National Training Agency has certification, so people, when they leave the training program, they feel empowered. The University of Trinidad and Tobago, and you spoke about the school program, which any minister will probably take that up as a challenge, and the Tobago House of Assembly with the school program there as well. So I'm just trying to help you to refocus. You're thinking about it in your strategic plan, but we are not seeing. And then the export capability. You have to train thousands.
To get a fee.
And we are seeing from your tracer study, you train in a particular year 200, and a certain amount have dropped out, and from them not much employment has taken place. So in summary, I want to ask you to reconsider your mandate, where the country wants to see you in terms of export as well, generating employment, training people. These are your three watchwords. Train, train, train. Thousands. Go with your designs and your material and your crafts and so on. Go to the centers where people will benefit from the training. And with the eventual issue of export in an economic situation when you're looking for diversification. So don't stay in a corner. Your mandate is Export Company Limited, Export Center Company Limited. We're not hearing much about that. So that's my exhortation to you this morning. In whatever you do in terms of your strategic direction, these are some of the wider, bigger pictures that you must think about. Thank you very much. Minister Primus.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have listened to the plans that have been articulated, and I'm sitting and wondering why isn't the organization filling the position of marketing manager, because your marketing manager becomes critical in this new trust. But I only heard the CEO, the financial accountant, the HR manager, the internal auditor, and those four, and not the marketing manager.
I think that was just an omission because in finalizing the strat plan, one of the things we said is that the marketing manager has to be one. It was just an omission because we understand that to move the company, to get the awareness that we want, that we do need a marketing.
Well, from where I sit, the company has to engage in rebranding itself. And therefore, from a strategic point of view, your marketing manager becomes a critical functionary in the whole framework of operations.
Yeah, just I want to highlight the issue of following up from what Minister Primus is saying. Your marketing strategies should incorporate new players on the market, new teams of people on the market, new organizations to have synergies with, but not new alone, existing organizations. So widen your scope. You may get assistance from a number of them, and funding will not be a critical issue because they may be funding some of these programs themselves. So just don't depend on your minister to ask for subvention for you to increase your subvention. So you have it here in your the general questions we ask you, in your answers to the question. You speak about partnering with other agencies to highlight and showcase the innate talent of our people. You also have supporting the tourism sector, which you spoke about, to have these here. Moving our clients from economic dependency to economic independence. So we want to see much more micro entrepreneurs coming through, and we're not getting it. Minister Hines spoke about 2 or 3 areas where he went to and saw the craft and so on. Very well done. And Minister Primer spoke about the new type of designs that are occurring. We have to expand on that. And we want to ask you to consider the big picture on that. But you're on the right track. Good thinking. I support Minister Hines in congratulating you on the way that you're looking at it. Fill your positions and so on. And we'll see a better export company limited. And we want to see that at the highest level. And we not only speak about YTEP and MIC and NSDP and all the other agencies which are working. We want to see you there as well.
To the chairman of the board, you have a number of years outstanding. I mean, we can all engage in growth and development and creating new visions, but transparency and accountability are principles that we must embrace. And in that context, could you give the committee some idea as to what time frame you all are working with in getting your financials up to date?
We have applied for, just this week, we have sent a letter off for increased funding. And actually, we have the unaudited accounts ready from 2011 to from 2012 to 2016, the unaudited, they are completed. However, once we receive the funding, and I know we would be able to have these years audited. We would be able to have the audited accounts, and we will also start 2017, 2018, once we get the increased funding. We have applied for it, and I think right now, that's really what we are waiting to move forward.
Mr. Chairman, in that context, perhaps I would want to hear from the acting permanent secretary in that regard. Some kind of positive undertaking.
Thank you very much, Minister Primus, with his Primus. Certainly, we are supporting the submissions of the ECCL, especially to get the accounts and audited accounts up to speed, up to date. We are also supporting what they are proposing in its strategic plan 2019 to 2021. But with regard to the audited accounts, of course, we need that to even press forward. And with that, we will be able to make sure that we get the monies available for the auditor to do the books right on time and then move forward with the lovely plans that we have for the marketing of the company and so on. So in terms of priority, I believe that you see the priority is actually to get the accounts in order.
I really want to commend the company. I am quite pleased to know that you have already completed 2012 to 2016 unaudited. So it meant that you all are heading in the right direction. And clearly, this committee can see a great effort being expended to bring the accounts up to date. Finally, Mr. Chairman, I want to talk directly to Ms. Babb, the Director, social and economic transformation from the Ministry of Finance. There's need for greater oversight. We understand the issue of resources and filling of positions and not having the full breadth of manpower specialists required. But there is need for greater oversight to ensure that all these companies and state enterprises, if they need help, then to assist them in whatever way possible. Not saying that you're to do the accounts for them, because your role is a very clear role, an oversight, semi-regulatory role, but a little more robustness coming out of the unit. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hines?
Yeah, that's right. If the government auditors did that, there won't be a problem of finding money to pay anyone to do it. You see? And because essentially this is the Auditor General's responsibility, although it has given authority to do it, to contract it out. But here we are. They're prepared. I suspect maybe the private contractor might have prepared them and not ready to sign until somebody else signs a check. So here's where we are. It is also in my spirit to say, as we conclude, following on what Minister Batiste Primus just said, that you all may be, and again Senator Cummins alluded to it, some person or persons among you have to become more spirited and be the voice out there for this thing. You need to probably come out a little more, talk a little more. Apart from that, someone must drive the thing. Someone must take some almost personal responsibility for there to be success. A football team, a cricket team, there's usually an individual or two who is driving it and getting others to become excited about it, because you have much to be excited about. I think I can identify persons, but we'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have come to the closure of the introspection and the answers that have come forward from the various entities. So on behalf of the committee, the Public Accounts Enterprise Committee, may I say a special thanks to the Investment Division of the Ministry of Finance. I've been advised if you would be kind enough to consider having some closing remarks before we wind up. Investment Division.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I would like to say that we are happy to be here and to hear, even though we have been in contact with the company and know of some of their challenges. At this meeting, we also learn of further challenges, and wherever we can assist, we shall assist. But I also must say the company, I know over the years, have had challenges with preparing the financials, and they have been making efforts to bring them up to date. But the funding issue, I know, was and the issue with respect to filling key positions in the company, like the financial accountant and auditors. Those were really the main, from where we sit, were the main issues really preventing. But I hope in going forward, there's a new board, and they are looking to fill the key positions that with this financial year and going forward, we would not have that issue. But wherever we can assist, we always do, and we are always in contact with all of our companies. Thank you.
Should we go to the closing comments from the export company?
I would like to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the panel for the information and guidance that was shared this morning. And I can assure you that the export centers, we have been working tirelessly and to get our books up to date, and we will continue to do so. I would just like to say in closing that the export centers has the potential to become the main driver to revitalize the craft industry. So once given the chance, export centers is up to the challenge. Thank you.
Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Again, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to support the State Enterprise ECCL in responding to the questions posed today. Quite interesting, and I note the need for more education, a marketing manager. I want to point out that that's a new position, so we have to get that one approved on the establishment, the marketing and communications manager, and also the need to focus more on export. And with my experience in the ministry, I've seen actually a huge support to the ECCL in promoting its craft markets. And coming up very soon will be a huge promotion of the craft of Trinidad and Tobago through its Carry Festa in August. Export companies, Centers Company Limited, they have a place in Carry Festa, so I believe that it's going to jump high in terms of the recognition of the local art and craft of Trinidad and Tobago in the region, because that's a regional event to take place. So with that said, we would continue to monitor. We would continue to look at the findings of the company as they get the books together, the audited books together. We want to improve the efficiency of the company, so we do our utmost to support whatever submissions that come in with a view to getting the mandate of the company, the original mandate of the company fulfilled. So thank you very much again.
Thank you, Acting Deputy Permanent Secretary, or Acting Permanent Secretary. I just add the creation of micro-entrepreneurship, widening that base, in addition to your expansion for export and networking with your agencies and getting support for your micro-entrepreneurs with NEDCO, because funds are available there as well. So thank you all very much. Chairman, any closing remarks from you?
I would like to say a special thank you to the committee. Thank you to the export team. I must say that we have a very hard-working team. I want to thank the board of directors who have supported the management team with regard to completion of the strat plan, reviewing it. I would like to say thank you for all the advice that we have received this morning from Mrs. Batiste, from the chairman. Moving forward, we need to showcase ECCL and put ECCL on the map. And we thank you for these words of advice. We certainly will return and start to implement measures to take ECCL to a higher level. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, on behalf of members of the committee, the Public Accounts Enterprise Committee, we want to thank each and every one of you sincerely for taking the time off to be with us here this morning and to subject yourself to the general public of the work that you're doing. We thank you very sincerely. And now this meeting